Hi, I'm David from David Christophers. I want to welcome you to our channel today, and I want to introduce to you Paige Stevens. She is one of our designers here at David Christophers, and today we're going to be showing you some of the props that we're going to start building. And Paige has already started on this frame, and I'm going to let her kind of explain what she did as she started building this frame. So this is actually we're going to build a rather large set, and these mushrooms, we have 3. This is the medium size. There's a smaller one and a larger one that's about 8 feet tall, and those are going to end up really incredible. So stick around and see what we do to those. In case you're interested in building some props of your own, maybe you've got a store for some window display, or Paige does a lot of community theater props.
Okay, guys. First, I'm going to talk to you like you don't know what you're doing, so don't let me down talk you. But some people need to know everything. So when you're making your mushrooms or your sets, decide if my first question to David is, how sturdy do you want this? He said pretty sturdy. So that means it's going to be around people. If it's going to be in your store, take that into account. So I did that. I didn't make the whole base out of wood because it's going to get too heavy once you put the paper mache, chicken wire, paint, nails, screws, everything in it. I made a basic square base, and we can show you that later on. We can pick it up and show you the bottom, but it's just a square platform with a carpet cob. You can get those at local carpet stores. It's called a cob. Just call them. They have them in 12 foot, 8 foot, 6 foot. Just cut it down to what size you need, and they're free. So go pick those up and make good use of those. After that, I did chicken wire. Make sure you have good gloves. I've gone through 2 pair. Apparently, they weren't very good. So make sure you get some good gloves because chicken wire will cut you up. David can attest to that too. Decide what shape you want. This is not a real mushroom ring. It's just what I chose to do. We're doing Alice in Wonderland. I want it to be whimsical and fun. So draw out what design you want. I can't sit here and tell you step by step how to make your mushroom. You have to figure that out as you go. I know I wanted a larger base. It gets thinner in the middle and thicker at the top. So you just kind of have to play with your chicken wire to get it to do what you want it to do and learn your cutting mechanism. I'll get you some really good wire snips. David can attest to that too.
And then this was a great thing that I thought Paige did. She made the top of the mushroom separate from the base of the mushroom so that we can separate those out, and it makes them a lot easier to transport. Yes. Because she's making them way back in the warehouse, and we have to bring them all the way back up to the store. Well,
I'll just go ahead and confess. I did that because I made the chimney and almost didn't get it out of the shop where I built it. I made it too big. So I'll just go ahead and confess that was just, learning error. And plus, it makes storage easier for you if you do want to keep them structures built. If you'll notice, I used chicken wire to stuff the top of it, because we are going to go and put florals on top of this, which is going to add weight. So you need to think that through. If you stuff it with paper, it's going to go flat. But one quick tip, stuff it with your chicken wire so you have more stability for your florals. The other thing David said he wanted one large enough for people to stand underneath. I mismeasured, and that just happens, but the top's added to it, so the large one is actually 8.5 feet. This one's about 6.5, and my 4 foot is almost 5 foot. Because once you add the top. So I don't do math. I'm an artist, and we just figure it out as we go. And I can't tell you what angles I used. I figured out what angle I wanted, and I traced it on the other ones. So just make it work for you. Some of you are math people. I'm not. So just put that out there. Once you get this done and you want to paper mache it, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, you have 2 choices on paper mache. You can use glue and water. I don't like that. The cleanup is terrible. The dry time is terrible. It makes them very brittle. People can poke through them a lot easier. We have a tree that we put on the floor, pretty permanent here. I use flour. It's a little bit more flexible when you're working with it. Dry time's a little bit more, just easier to work with. So just flour and water, 2 parts water, 1 part flour. I do kind of an oatmeal consistency. However, these are vertical. So keep in mind when you're doing a vertical paper mache, they're going to slide down. Gravity takes hold. And so what I've learned in the past is you've got to get something on the base of your chicken wire for it to grab hold of. A lot of people will wrap in newspaper. To me, that gets soggy. It still slides. So go ahead and invest. I got 7 rolls of masking tape for like $18. So all I'm doing is wrapping this as tight as I can, the entire thing, with masking tape. You can see if Jennifer can zoom in, I'm covering every inch. One, it's going to keep your paper mache from rotting, because if you keep these over time and use a flour mixture, they can rot. It's going to put a barrier on the back side of this from the elements coming from the inside, and then we're also going to paint and secure the outside, so it'll cut down on your rot time. So just, I like to keep the tape in solid consistency. Try to wrap as consistent as you can, and not do small pieces, because that lets air bubbles in, lets your air get to your paper mache. You don't want to do that. And I know that sounds weird because this is an adhesive, but air will get in there. So try to keep it one consistency as you roll down each piece. Get up under your tight crevices and cover all the air holes. Okay. Hey guys, we talked a little bit about paper macheing, and now I'm going to show you a few tips. Let me go ahead and tell you, weather is not your friend. I've been working in the back where it's really cold. The weather outside today is, maybe it's going to snow, maybe it's not. Who knows? We live in the South. So your mixture needs to be to your liking. I usually like it a little bit more runny than this, but with the weather like it is, I made it thicker because it makes the process go faster. If it's too thin, it's going to run and you can't make it work. So make it work for you. I have about 2 parts water and 2 parts flour in here. So if you can get a good look at this, it's just a little bit thicker, a little bit thinner than oatmeal. So you want it kind of like a pancake batter, I guess you would say. Now I'm going to show you the messy part, the fun part. You need to work in probably 2 to 3 layers. Like I said earlier, I spent David's money and bought masking tape, and that's going to cut down on your work time. And that's going to give us our base layer. It's also going to make it a little bit stronger. So I'm going to do about 2, maybe 3 layers of the paper. Newsprint, you can purchase this at your local hobby stores, craft stores, or you can do like I did and go to the local newspaper office and get their end rolls and just tear those to the lengths that you like. Notice I'm working in large pieces, not too large, so you can still handle them. Once this gets wet, it gets very fragile and it tears very easily. And so you need to make sure it's workable. So I've already started the base. I've started at the bottom, working up. Remember, gravity takes hold. So I tend to start at the bottom so it hopefully can start drying and tend to hold on to your work. Cut down on your work time. If you'll just take handfuls of your goop, your paste, and get that on your tree. This, instead of trying to put it on your paper, is going to make process a little bit easier. Once I get a good layer of paste on, I'm going to lay my paper on, and then just go back over that with your paste. Let me go ahead and remind you, this is flour and water. Use all-purpose flour. Doesn't have your baking sodas and all those things in it. It's just plain flour. Doesn't have anything working against you, but you are making a paste. So you might want to cover your clothes, cover your flooring like I have. I don't want to upset my bosses, if you will. So make sure you're covering your floor and yourself because this will, once it hardens, will not wash out. And it will not come off your clothes. All right, I put a layer on top of that paper. So I'm going to make sure I cover my seam from where I started over here to the layer that I just put on, so they can hold one another on. Notice I'm not being shy with the paste, because that's what's going to harden and give you what you're going to paint. Make it as smooth as you want, as bumpy as you want. If you want your shroom to have texture, you can do that. You can crumple up your paper. You can put that on. You can use paper bags. That'll give you a different texture. I'm just doing smooth shroom bodies.
So now we kind of like to give you an idea of how Paige came up with the cap for the mushroom and the structure that it is, because she's kind of gone over a lot of the chicken wire and how to mask it after that. But just exactly how did you start with the frame for this cap?
Okay, first, David said he wants to be able to stand underneath it, so make sure it's sturdy enough that it doesn't fall and you get sued. So I started thinking about how can I make the chicken wire safe. So I knew I had to have some kind of X frame in order to make the chicken wire top. When I started thinking about how to make this fit onto the tube, I got really confused. I tried to make it out of chicken wire and it wasn't strong enough, so I went to the PVC piping section, who is your friend when you are building sets, and found a 4-inch cap that would fit on my carpet rolls and went from there. You do have to use math, hate to tell you, because these screws can't come through your plastic because it prevents the cap from fitting on your tubing. So you have to make sure your screws are short enough that they don't prevent that. It also causes a locking mechanism. You notice I put some padding tape in there just to make it fit a little bit tighter and secure because we are going to be adding a lot of weight. So just have fun with it.
So the PVC fits perfectly down over the top of the carpet roll.
Hopefully.
Kind of pull that down a little bit.
Yeah.
And then this guy's together. Okay, so this is kind of a next step in where you're going to be with your mushroom. As you can see, it's already all paper mache. And the other addition that we have here, which was a great find that Paige was, where did you
Dollar
find it?
General.
Dollar General. So
Paper.
we wanted frills underneath our mushroom cap, which was something we contemplated a lot of different things.
Fabric.
Yeah, but it was a
air
lot
filters.
of time-intensive things that we were coming up with. And she happened to be at Dollar General and found these paper blinds.
Yep, it's just a Venetian blind, but they're made out of paper, so you can paint them. And they're very inexpensive.
Those are great, because we're not really going to have a lot underneath, but we wanted you to be able to see underneath, because if your mushroom is going to be high enough, if it's going to be 8 feet, 7 feet, 5 feet, we want everybody to see underneath them, and that be that really beautiful frilled part that's underneath the mushroom cap. So those, I think, were a great find.
Please note that the painting is not done. I just put a little bit of paint on there so you could see the folds that were already done for you. Also, David, as David said, this is already paper mache, but it's also got keels on it. The reason I use keels is it helps shrink that paper mache, helps dry it. It's also going to preserve it so it won't rot on you. So keep that in mind.
And so Paige is going to start painting part of our stalk, our stem to our mushroom and some of the frills underneath. And then we're actually going to show you how we're going to decorate the top of it. So we're going to end up painting the entire mushroom. We'll show you kind of what that looks like a little later on. But for now, we want to cover our cap because we really want the chicken wire base. But at the same time, it's going to take about $10,000 worth of product to cover it where you would not be able to see any of the chicken wire. And while that's a great idea, we're not going to do that. We're actually going to cover the cap in butcher paper first, and then that will still allow us to poke through the chicken wire with all of our floral that's going to be on top of our mushroom cap.
You also don't want to paper mache the top, because if you use it more than 1 year, sometimes we like to try to get 1 or 2 seasons out of props, or David and I were discussing that if you're using it for a play. If you paper mache the tops and you're using florals, you're going to poke that hole and it's going to be a hole. So you're going to have to use those same holes, and everything's not going to be secure next year. He may not buy the same products. We might want to showcase different products. So this way, by using paper, you can rip that off and put fresh paper on next year and kind of secure your holes a little bit better and hold your product tighter. Okay.
And don't be too concerned about losing some of the shape of your chicken wire. It's really just a guide, and it's there more for the structure than anything, because we're going to add florals to it. You're going to lose some of that structure anyway. And we're really just taking the masking tape and adding that to the chicken wire to get that to stay. The outer edge here, we've got a little gap between our frill and our butcher paper. We're leaving that on purpose because I'm actually going to take real sheet moss and attach that to the outer edge here where we have our small gap, because I want it to be very natural and have that really flowing look to it.
It's great.
Ready?
Yeah. We're going.
All right, so now that we have our mushroom cap papered and it's ready to go, we want to moss this outer edge with sheet moss, but we have decided that it's probably going to be easier to take our cap off in order to moss this part. So we're going to go ahead and take it off. And for this, we're just going to use hot glue because we've got some paper down, and we can kind of adjust where we need to. And sheet moss is called sheet moss because it kind of comes in sheets like this, and we're just going to tear the size that we need, because this is really just an outer ring. And you can just tear as you go. This stuff. It is messy. It does have real soil underneath it, so just be aware of that.
I'm going to just waste some glue.
Hot glue.
Wow. I'll hold this. Really not
Yeah.
much.
Don't get it on your fingers. It's hot.
Or your partner's fingers.
Yeah.
The only person safe right now is the cameraman. If you'll notice, I'm gluing some of it to this paper. One, to hold the paper in place. Two, to hold moss in place. Because we are gluing mainly to chicken wire, trying to get on the paper.
And chicken wire is not easy to glue to. If you do a little.
Sure. Skinny, cute. Yeah. What did I name him a while ago? Earl. Oh, Earl the mushroom. That's right. Earl the shroom. There it is.
So we are wrapping up part 1 of our Alice in Wonderland set, and it's just something I've always really wanted to be able to do, is to build something crazy and outlandish. Like Alice in Wonderland is always just a creative landscape, and I wanted to do it out of floral because that's what we do. And I'm really excited to show you this is our small mushroom, our large mushroom, we've got our medium-sized mushroom, and then we're going to turn this entire area into a Alice in Wonderland tea party eventually. And this is going to be part 1 of 3, so stick around, we'll show you the rest of it when we get it ready.